Special Agent Washington.
You've just committed a federal offense.
I didn't know. You will now.
The sharp, deliberate rip of a driver's license being torn in two echoed through the hushed first-class cabin of Horizon Sky's Flight 412, slicing through the soft clink of champagne glasses. A collective gasp followed, as if the air itself had been punctured. The pilot, a grizzled man with a chest full of service pins, glared down at the young woman in seat 3A. "Enjoy your flight," he sneered, his voice dripping with condescension. He thought her quiet demeanor signaled weakness, her youthful appearance a lack of authority. He was catastrophically wrong. What he couldn't have anticipated was the small leather case she would calmly pull from her sleek briefcase. This wasn't just a tale of a high-altitude confrontation. It was the true story of how a veteran captain's career crashed and burned, all because he targeted the one woman he should have left alone. Dr. Lena Washington settled into the leather seat with a quiet exhale, the first-class cabin of the Chicago to Seattle flight a rare moment of calm after weeks of relentless work. The hum of the Boeing 787's engines was a soothing balm for nerves frayed by a covert operation that had culminated in a pre-dawn raid in Chicago's gritty South Side. For most passengers, first class was a flex of wealth or status. For Lena, it was a necessity, a shield of privacy for an FBI special agent carrying classified intelligence. At 32, Lena was a prodigy, a PhD in behavioral analysis, and one of the youngest team leaders in the FBI's cybercrime division. Her latest case had dismantled a dark web syndicate laundering millions for a trafficking network. Now, she was en route to Seattle to brief Homeland Security on the operation's West Coast connections. Her first-class ticket wasn't a luxury. It was protocol, ensuring seclusion and a swift exit upon landing. Dressed in a tailored navy suit and a crisp white blouse, Lena blended into the corporate elite around her. Her briefcase, understated but expensive, held a copy of Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, a tube of lip balm, and her service weapon, a Glock 19, along with credentials that could shift the balance of power in any room. A flight attendant, a cheerful woman named Sarah with a polished smile, approached. "Something to drink, Dr. Washington? Maybe a glass of Pinot? Just sparkling water with lemon, please," Lena replied, her voice steady and warm. Sarah nodded, her name tag catching Lena's eye, a detail her training compelled her to notice. As Sarah moved away, the pilot emerged from the cockpit to greet the premium passengers. Captain William Bill Harper was a towering figure in his late 50s, his uniform adorned with stripes and badges from a 30-year career, including a stint flying C-130s for the Air Force. His handshake was firm for the suited men, his smile charming for the older women in designer scarves. When his eyes landed on Lena, they lingered, a flicker of judgment crossing his face. Young, black, female, in first class. To him, the equation didn't add up. Lena felt the familiar pang of being sized up, but she pushed it aside. She was exhausted, her mind already in Seattle, mapping out her briefing. She just wanted to rest. The plane taxied, the city lights of Chicago fading as they climbed into the night. The seatbelt sign chimed off, and Lena opened her book, hoping for a moment of peace. But peace wasn't on the manifest. A shadow fell over her page. Captain Harper stood in the aisle, arms crossed, his face a mask of authority. "Ma'am," he said, his tone clipped, "I need to see your boarding pass again." Lena blinked, marking her place before reaching into her briefcase. The cabin grew quiet, passengers glancing over. She handed him the pass, her expression neutral. He studied it, his lips pursing. "Dr. Lena Washington," he read aloud, the title sounding like a challenge. "What kind of doctor are you?" "The kind who values her privacy," Lena replied, her voice polite but firm, extending her hand for the pass. Harper ignored it, his eyes narrowing. "We've had issues with people sneaking into first class," he said, his voice loud enough to carry. "Causes a lot of trouble." The implication was clear, and it stung. Lena's training kicked in, stay calm. Assess. Control. She suppressed the flare of anger, knowing escalation would draw unwanted attention. "I assure you, Captain, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be," she said, her tone icy but controlled. Harper smirked. "I'm sure. But for security, I'll need your ID to match this pass." It was an unusual demand, one that skirted protocol. Lena sighed, reached past her Glock, and pulled out her Illinois driver's license. This, she thought, would end it. She was wrong. Harper took the license, holding it up to the cabin light, as if inspecting a counterfeit bill. The silence grew heavy, passengers staring openly. Sarah, the flight attendant, hovered nervously by the galley. Dr. Lena Washington, Harper read, his voice mocking. Nice photo. Very professional. It's a driver's license, Captain, Lena said, her patience thinning. Her training urged de-escalation, but Harper was pushing her to the edge. These can be faked, he said, leaning closer, his voice a low taunt. A young lady like you, you'd be surprised what people do to sit up here. The words were a gut punch, reducing her to a stereotype, dismissing her years of grueling work at Quantico, her PhD, her takedown of criminals who thought they were untouchable. Captain, Lena said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, return my ID. Now. For a moment, uncertainty flickered in Harper's eyes. He hadn't expected her steal. But his ego, bloated from decades of unchallenged authority, surged back. Not satisfied, he said, bending the license between his fingers. This feels cheap. Lamination's off. Stop, Lena ordered, her voice cutting through the cabin. Sarah stepped forward. Captain, I can check her ticket with the gate records. Stay out of this, Sarah, Harper snapped. I'm in charge here. The license creaked under his grip. He was enjoying this. Lena realized the power, the spectacle, the chance to put her in her place. A passenger, a heavy-set man in 4B, spoke up. Bill, come on. She's a paying customer. Let it go. This is a security matter, Tom, Harper shot back, using the man's name to assert dominance. He held up the bent license, the plastic cracking. Last chance. Who are you really? Lena's mind raced. Her Seattle briefing was critical. Any incident could jeopardize it. She could endure this, file a complaint later. But Harper's smug cruelty, his glee in humiliating her, tipped the scales. This wasn't about security. It was about power. And Lena Washington didn't back down from bullies. Captain Harper, she said, her voice devoid of warmth. I'm giving you one final chance to return my property. If you don't, you'll regret it for the rest of your career. Harper laughed, a harsh bark. Regret? You're the one who made a mistake, lady. With a deliberate flourish, he tore the license in half, letting the pieces fall onto her lap. Problem solved. Airport police will sort you out in Seattle. He turned to stride back to the cockpit, victorious in his own mind. But as he did, Lena stood. Her movement was smooth, deliberate, like a predator rising. Captain, she said, her voice ablade. He froze, turning back with a scowl. Every eye in the cabin locked on her. Lena reached into her briefcase, her hand steady. She didn't pull out a phone or another ID. Instead, she withdrew a small leather case. With a flick, she opened it, revealing a gold badge glinting under the cabin lights. The seal of the U.S. Department of Justice was unmistakable, the words Federal Bureau of Investigation etched below. Special Agent Dr. Lena Washington, she announced, her voice ringing with authority. And you, Captain, have just committed a federal offense. The cabin erupted in gasps. Harper's face drained of color, his smirk replaced by slack-jawed shock. The passenger in 4B sat up, stunned. Sarah clutched her hands, her eyes wide. Lena stepped forward, closing the distance. Harper stumbled back. Let me be clear, Lena said, her tone clinical, dissecting him like a case study. You've willfully destroyed a government-issued ID belonging to a federal officer in front of witnesses. More importantly, you've interfered with an agent in the performance of her duties. That's Title 18, Section 111. Up to 8 years in prison. I should know I've arrested people for it. Harper stammered, "Two didn't know?" You're not paid to know, Lena cut in, her voice razor sharp. You're paid to fly this plane and treat passengers with respect, not to act on your biases. Your actions were an abuse of power, and they end now. She turned to the co-pilot, a young man named Ethan Carter, watching from the cockpit door. First Officer Carter, you're now in command. Captain Harper is relieved of duty. He'll sit in the jump seat and touch nothing. Understood. Yes, ma'am, Ethan said, his voice steady despite his wide eyes. Lena addressed Sarah. Please collect the pieces of my ID in a bag. It's evidence. Sarah nodded, scrambling to comply. Finally, Lena leaned close to Harper, her voice a lethal whisper. You thought you could bully me, William. You thought wrong. Your consequences start now. Harper shuffled to the cockpit, a broken man, as the door closed behind him. The cabin was silent, the passengers all palpable. Lena had turned the tables with devastating precision. In the cockpit, Harper slumped in the jump seat, staring at the glowing instruments he could no longer touch. The words federal offense and 8 years looped in his mind. He'd been the king of this plane, untouchable. Now he was nothing. The humiliation was a physical weight, crushing the identity he'd built over decades. He was Captain Harper, a name that opened doors, commanded respect. Without it, who was he? Just Bill, a man with a foreclosed house, a distant daughter, and a life unraveling at 35,000 feet. Why had he done it? The question gnawed at him. He'd told himself it was security, protocol. But deep down, he knew the truth. Lena's presence, young, black, confident, had challenged his worldview. She didn't fit his idea of who belonged in first class. Her calm authority had enraged him, and he'd lashed out to reassert control. Instead, he'd destroyed himself. Back in the cabin, Lena restored order. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, her voice carrying a quiet strength. I'm Special Agent Lena Washington. The incident is resolved. First Officer Carter is in command, and we'll land in Seattle as planned. Please remain calm and provide your contact information to the crew. Passengers whispered, their shock giving way to admiration. The man in 4B, Tom, looked at her with respect tinged with fear. Sarah handed Lena a paper bag with the torn ID, her hands trembling. He's always been a bully, Sarah whispered. I'm so sorry. No need to apologize, Lena said, offering a reassuring nod. You did well. For the next 4 hours, the flight was a study in tension. Passengers glanced at Lena, who appeared to read her book but was actually strategizing. Using the plane's satellite phone, she made an encrypted call to the FBI's Seattle field office. Operation Cascade is on track, she said, using her mission's code name. Encountered local interference. Situation contained, but I'll need ground support. Standard protocol for agent obstruction. The response was immediate, setting a federal response in motion. In the cockpit, Ethan flew with precision, his glances at Harper filled with pity and disdain. Harper's silence was deafening, his career a smoldering wreck. As Seattle's skyline appeared, Harper's dread peaked. He knew who awaited him, not Horizon Sky's staff, but Lena's team. The plane landed smoothly, but instead of taxiing to the terminal, a vehicle guided them to a remote tarmac. Black SUVs and a van with federal SEALs waited, flanked by agents in suits. Passengers peered out, the gravity of the situation sinking in. Harper whispered to Ethan, "Tell them it was a mistake." Ethan shook his head. "You did this, Bill. Face it." The cabin door opened, and a stern man in a gray suit boarded. "Agent Washington," he said, nodding to Lena. "Ground team is ready." "Thank you, Greg," Lena replied. She gestured to the cockpit. "Please escort Captain Harper off the aircraft." 2 agents, one from the FBI, one from Homeland Security, entered the cockpit. Harper emerged, hatless, tie askew, his eyes avoiding the passengers he'd once commanded. They led him down the mobile stairs to an SUV. Lena watched, her face impassive. His ruin was his own doing, and her duty was to the mission, not his redemption. The fallout was swift and merciless. Horizon Skies, headquartered in Denver, went into damage control. Lena's formal complaint, backed by statements from Ethan, Sarah, and passengers, painted a clear picture of Harper's prejudice-driven actions. Within hours, he was fired via email, citing misconduct and reputational harm. His travel privileges were revoked, his accounts locked. The FAA launched an investigation, but the outcome was inevitable. With testimony from a federal agent and witnesses, Harper's pilot license was revoked. His career was over. He couldn't even fly a Cessna legally. The Department of Justice issued a warrant for his arrest on charges of interfering with a federal officer, a felony. The story broke nationally. A leaked report fueled headlines. Veteran pilot fired, faces charges after destroying FBI agent's ID. Harper's Air Force record was overshadowed by stories of his temper and a buried complaint from a female co-pilot. He became a pariah, shunned by colleagues and friends. His daughter, Emily, called once, her voice cold. "You embarrassed us, Dad. You were a bully. Don't call me." In a Seattle federal courtroom, Harper faced Judge Margaret Ellis. His lawyer pleaded for leniency, citing his service. But Judge Ellis was unmoved. "Mr. Harper," she said, her voice heavy with disappointment, "you were entrusted with lives, with safety. You betrayed that trust with prejudice and cruelty. This court calls it an abuse of power." The sentence was no prison but a devastating alternative. 3 years of probation, a $50,000 fine, and 600 hours of community service at a Seattle-Tacoma airport warehouse sorting donations for a refugee aid group. Harper's first day was hell. The roar of jets once his symphony mocked him as he sorted worn clothes under the supervision of a young manager, Javier, who knew him only as Bill, the court-ordered volunteer. At home, Harper's life crumbled. His daughter cut contact. His ex-wife sent a curt text. "You always thought you were above everyone. Look at you now." Old colleagues avoided him. At a bar near the airport, a former co-pilot left after one drink, unable to meet his eyes. Harper was a ghost, haunted by his own choices. One night, eating cold soup in his sparse apartment, a Horizon Skies ad played on TV. Smiling pilots, happy families. Harper broke, sobbing on the floor. The truth hit him. He'd targeted Lena because her presence challenged his biases. Her confidence, her race, her gender had wanted to break her. Instead, he'd broken himself. "I'm a racist," he whispered to the empty room. The confession a painful first step. 2 years later, Harper was a shadow of himself, sorting medical supplies at the warehouse. A Horizon jet taxied by, and he watched, the ache distant now. He was just Bill, serving his time. Meanwhile, Lena was in a secure D.C. office, briefing CIA analysts on a cybercrime network. Her glance out the window caught a warehouse worker, vaguely familiar. Her mind cataloged him. Harper, William, no threat, case closed. She felt no thing, no victory, no pity. He was irrelevant, a footnote in her mission-driven life. As her flight to London was called, Lena walked to the gate, her focus razor-sharp. Outside, the jet Harper watched roared into the sky, a symbol of progress leaving him behind. His fall was complete, his life grounded by his own prejudice. Lena soared, her strength and justice unyielding. This story is a stark reminder that prejudice is a poison, destroying those who wield it. Harper's abuse of power cost him everything: his career, his family, his honor. Lena's calm, disciplined response showed that true strength lies in character, not aggression. Her badge was a symbol, but her resolve was her power. What do you think about Harper's downfall? Was his punishment fair, or too harsh? How should we confront bullies and injustice in our own lives? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective on power, prejudice, and accountability.